Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am UTC President and CEO Rusty Williams. I want to thank you for joining us today on our third episode of this special edition of the UTC podcast that we're calling C-Suite Conversations. I want to encourage you to go back, if you haven't already, and listen to each of the episodes of this series. But if you have listened already, well, thanks for joining us again. We're glad to have you back and a part of this conversation. On this episode today, I'm happy to welcome two guests from L3Harris Technologies. That would be Mr. Rob Butts and Mr. James Potter. Rob currently serves as a market manager for the public safety and professional communications team at L3Harris, and James is the director of strategic solutions in the same organization. Rob and James, it's great to have you here on the podcast today. Glad you're a part of this. I know L3Harris has been a member of UTC and a supporter for quite a while. So on behalf of UTC for L3Harris, I want to say thank you, but most of all, I want to welcome you and tell you appreciate you being with us today.
Yeah, Rusty, thank you for having us. Very early in my career, I was exposed to our utility customers and UTC, of course. And out of all the markets we serve, this is my absolute favorite. I really enjoy the long-term partnerships, and being born an engineer myself, and majority of the people we work with on the utility side are engineers themselves. We get to work together to solve problems. I think that's the big difference in the utility market is the collaboration and partnership and trying to solve problems for the customers that we mutually serve out in the field.
Yeah, Rob, we appreciate you being here as well.
Thanks, Rusty. I appreciate it. And I totally agree with James. One of my favorites, UTC has always been one of my favorite conferences and groups to deal with. I come from the utility industry. I was with Southern Company for a number of years. Attended UTC as a utility for years and got a lot out of it. And then moved over onto the vendor side, and I'm still at UTC. So obviously, it's near and dear to my heart, and appreciate you having us on, Rusty.
Yeah, and again, we were talking before we started recording here, and again, we know each other through history and through our careers. Rob and I have a similar career path, and I know James and I have crossed paths many times, over our careers. And I thought we'd start the conversation maybe by talking about that. As James said, the utility space is an interesting place to work, whether you're on the customer side, the utility side, or on the supplier side. But we see people, and again, I've been around a long time, and I joke about being burdened by history of all the things I've been able to see and experience. But one of the good things about it is we see people come into this industry, regardless of whether you're on the utility side or on the supplier side, and stick around and make a complete career out of it. And so, which is good to see. If I'm a fellow person in this career, it's good to see those people grow and advance and be a part of the solutions and the growth of the industry. So, Rob, let me start with you. What do you think draws people into this particular industry, and then once they're here, keeps them here, what could be 20 years, 30 years, 40 years for a career?
Yeah, you're dating us there, Rusty. But I appreciate it. Yeah, the 30 to 40 years where I am, I think what really brings people into the industry or, into this whole utility telecom side of it is really the passion for providing a product that means something to people, right? A lot of people get into a side of the business where they're disconnected a little bit from the customer, from the person, the end user. And I think one thing about the utility telecom side is that we see the product being used every day. The product develops. That's the other part of it that I like. It's a continuously developing industry that is always throwing you curveballs and giving you some great little treats to go along with it. So that's what I love about the industry. It keeps you coming back, right? It keeps you going, and really I thoroughly enjoy the technology.
James, you talked about being an engineer, born an engineer. I joke to people about myself that in this job, I'm a recovering engineer. Right? I'm not really doing engineering work, but that, to me, a part of the question here of what draws people is it's technical. You are looking for solutions, and it's a place that engineers can come and actually feel like they're contributing to the overall success of the organization. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
So, I actually started here in this business unit right out of college. I co-opted through school as well and was building SCADA systems. So, kind of that mission critical world already now looking back. So here I've been with the company coming up on 24 years. And so now, as from the young engineer right out of school and building our systems and my career transitioning from building them to designing to selling and now actually leading product management of what the future solutions are for us. Now I'm the old guy hiring the young kids out of college. And as Rob mentioned, the current generation coming out of school, they want to feel connection, that there's some purpose to what they do. And it's very easy for us to say what we do matters in everybody's lives, from our public safety side to our utility markets as well, right? What we do matters. What we do keeps the lights on. What we do in the worst of worst conditions, our products have to work and support those on the front lines. Those first responders, if you're the one getting the power back on, the people want to have the lights working, or clearing out traffic during the worst of the time. That's what we do. And I get to present that back, and it really, while I'm presenting it, I'm also reminding myself the purpose I have in life and what it means to society in general. I think that's special, and drives us to be what we do, and our mantra of being all in here, supporting our customers.
Yeah, that's great, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I've joked through, again, looking back, from my perspective, back into my history, when I started at Alabama Power Company, the telecom people were pretty much in the background, right? You did what you did, and nobody knew you really existed unless something broke, right? And it's been interesting to watch the evolution over that time period until now, that people in this space have gone from being in the background to being in the critical path of utilities being successful in the delivery of their services. So it's an exciting time to be in this business. And, it's companies like L3Harris that provides not just a product, not just a box, but to help, provide those solutions to meet the business needs. Let's talk about L3Harris a little bit. Again, people know the name. If you've been in this industry, you may know it for certain things. You may know it as two-way radios. You may know it as other things. But as I was kind of getting ready for our conversation here this morning, I was just digging around. I'm a big Googler and Wikipedia guy, and, go to L3Harris's website and saw all the stuff that L3Harris is involved with over and above what maybe those of us in the utility industry knows. But what can you guys tell me? I don't know which one of you guys want to answer this question, but what can you tell me about L3Harris as a corporation and all the different markets they're involved with?
Oh, it's amazing, Rusty. So we're a $20 billion technology company that delivers innovative solutions for, in general, mission critical challenges. Those range from, we have a space and airborne systems business that provides satellite solutions for missile defense, positioning, GPS navigation and timing, the climate monitoring with ground-based surveillance networks, and networking solutions for air traffic management, right? So if you're using GPS timing in your network, that comes from L3Harris. If you get on an airplane and fly and you're managing air traffic, you're an L3Harris customer in that world already. We have another business that's we call integrated mission systems, and that's supporting airborne and maritime command and controls for various classified programs, optical systems, defense electronics, and commercial aviation, all the way to pilot training. We actually have a facility in Texas where they have flight simulators, and just like you see in the video games or at the amusement parks, right? They're training pilots how to fly. We provide those systems. We recently acquired a company called Aerojet Rocketdyne that provides the propulsion and power systems. So that's the big boosters on the rockets there, putting items into space for us. And then our divisions called Public Safety and Professional Communications. We reside in what's called Communication Systems business unit. And our sister sectors are the ones that build tactical radios. That's the green radios, we refer to them, primarily out of Rochester. There's a group in Salt Lake City that does broadband data links. So that's broadband communications from like airplane to airplane, or from a ship to an airplane itself. And then the really cool night vision goggles that you see that go out and go find people in the dark. If you've seen any of the SEAL Team 6 videos, that's us. If we look at us overall, I think our mantra is a trusted disruptor, right? I think you have to have trust. And that goes back to having long-term relationships with the customers like we do in the utility market. And the disruptor side is that we're innovative, right? I think as a defense contractor, primarily for the sixth largest, so we're the sixth smallest. I think that makes us more nimble and very technology focused. And it's all about delivering solutions in a mission critical environment, regardless if it's space, maritime, defense, or utility, right? It's still those same foundational mantra of executing and providing our customers in the most challenging missions.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And I saw that word on your website, the disruptor, trusted disruptor. And Rob, let me ask you this question, chase that just one little bit farther. When you think of the utility space, critical infrastructure, or even public safety, being a disruptor is not necessarily a good thing, right? I mean, what's the purpose of the utility companies is to keep the lights on, the water flowing, gas flowing, and you don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize that. So when you think about things like, new technologies and implementation of different processes, the utilities typically will kind of throw their hands up and go, I don't know if I want that, right? Think about that. Give me some thoughts, Rob, if you will, about that idea of being a disruptor in the utility space and kind of how you think that is being played out in this technology area.
I mean, it's a great question, and you got me pondering here for just a second, trying to come up with an answer that is that doesn't scare off people like you guys, right? Or you formally, but the utility customers. But I totally agree with what you're saying. Disruptor in the utility business, they don't necessarily want to be a disruptor. But I think one of the areas where we're a trusted disruptor is go into the standards side of the business, right? In for a long time, ourselves as well as our competitors and our fellow brethren in the vendor business had always developed products that were based on exactly what folks needed and how they worked, but they were proprietary. And these products, I mean, everybody has their own proprietary network, right? I think the trusted disruptor from our standpoint might be the fact that we're going after standards-based products. We want to produce standards-based products. We want to keep towards the standards. We want to be able to offer our customers long-term answers to the problems that they're trying, the solutions that they're trying to design. And that sounds weird that going by the standards would be a trusted disruptor, but in our business, it is. Nobody has really been in a standards-based communications business and standards-based communications products, and that's one of the things that we're really pushing towards in our most recent developments.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I didn't mean to throw you a curveball there.
Oh, you're good.
But no. I was thinking
it was a good question.
No. And I was thinking, again, when I first started at Alabama Power, I was actually a distribution engineer. Mm-hmm. So, that's how I got into the business, my first exposure. And, back then, again, no technology, it was all mechanical, very, very manual. And you'd been doing the same thing, particularly from an engineering perspective, for the last 50 years. So, you don't even want to think about doing anything different because different's bad, right? Mm-hmm. But that evolution over that time period, it is completely different because now technology is at the forefront, whether it's customer interaction or whether it's control systems. James mentioned SCADA systems earlier. Whether it's all of that, the technology continues to evolve, and we've got so much more capability now. And who knows when we look forward, where that goes next, what happens in the next 10 years and how does AI play into this? And, some of the, global penetration of satellite coverage and other things, man, there's just all kind of opportunities there. And I think it's an exciting time to where, 10, 20 years ago, it was tough getting those people out of college that James was talking about to come to work for the utilities because it wasn't sexy, right? It wasn't shiny. It was, seen as something that, if I want to go conquer the world, that's not where I go. But I think today, that's changing, and there's so much technology involved in utility space that, man, it's an exciting place to be, and it's companies like L3Harris that's a part of that, and you know that's part of the total ecosystem, if I want to use that term, or the portfolio of everything that we can do. You know, one of the big things that UTC is involved with in the industry is the regulatory and policy making part and standard setting. You mentioned standards earlier.
Mhm.
Is L3Harris involved in that? Rob, you talked about that earlier. From trying to have open systems, standards based system. Does L3Harris get involved in any of those policy making or standard settings activity?
Absolutely. We have been involved in standards-based committees for a number of years. Most recently, and I say most recently, I'll talk in utility terms, right? Over the past 10 to 15 years, we were very involved in the establishment of the Project 25 standards, which are the P25 standards for digital communications for mission critical networks. We have been delivering P25 networks for 10 to 12 years, 10, 15 years, and continue to go that direction. But we also realized that when the broadband side of the business started moving forward, the standards, the 3GPP standards were extremely important, and L3Harris has been involved in that side of it also for quite some time. It affected our customers. It affected, the RF side of the way we do business and the interference and those types of things. So we've been very involved in it, down to the point that we're also involved in the MCX standards, if you will, the mission critical PTT standards, PTT data and voice and video, as we look at next generation voice networks for utilities. There has to be a path. There's not going to be a P26. There's not going to be a DMR 3.0. We have to look at what's next on the horizon from a both digital and broadband standpoint, and that's why we've been involved so much in the standards based committees and those types of things from a while back.
Yeah. So James, let's talk about some of those new technologies. All right, some of the things that are coming down the pike. Like I said, we don't know, something actually can be until it presented to us. My classic example that I used before was iPhones. Nobody knew what a smartphone was until one appeared, and now, 15 years later, we can't imagine living without one. So in this space, in the comm space, in the stuff that L3Harris is involved with, what do you see as some of those new capabilities, new technologies that might be coming down the road?
Absolutely. So, standards-based systems, we've been delivering those for decades now. Coming forward, as Rob mentioned, is the world of LTE. We've been living in RF networks, land mobile radio, and the various frequency bands. So our first kind of leap was we leveraged the technology from our tactical radio group and military radios that have to work in multiple bands across the planet and be very flexible there. So we brought in multi-band radios into the marketplace, which is very helpful as utilities were acquiring each other. They might have different networks, or they have to go support each other throughout different disaster responses. Having the multi-band radios allow them to support each other if they're on different systems. And now with standards-based systems, they can actually work on those digital networks together, regardless of what frequency band they're on, with having one device, right? So that was, I think, goes back to our disruptor. That was disruptive, right? Before having to carry multiple devices, you can carry one and travel literally around the country. And really the next step now is the evolution into LTE. So that's the very next leap. I think that's another disruptive part of it that some would see that's disruptive. We see that as a great advantage of, again, yet another, now it's a global standard of LTE. And how do your words of how do you leverage that global ecosystem of products that work in that world? So now we're taking those multi-band radios that we brought before and then adding LTE into them. So what we call convergence. So now you have multi-band LMR and LTE all on the same device. So now you can work the country, interoperate with other first responders to communicate, right? Because that's one of the first things that we do, right? UTC, we're focused on communications. So how can we make people communicate easier that are out in the worst of environments? and having a rugged device that can work on any band and the LTE now, and leveraging those global standards, P25 and MCPTT and MCX, is what we're bringing to the market. And you'll start to see those. We've announced that we're supporting band 106 in our devices rolling out next summer. So we're super excited about that, right? We're supporting the next generation where we think utilities are going from a communications perspective and leveraging one system for all the communications. That's will be disruptive, but a very positive disruption. We want to be at the forefront of that, being that long-term partner with our utility customers and even new customers going forward.
Yeah, and Rob, as we start getting close to the end here, let's think about the use of that technology. You were on the utility side for a large part of your career, and James is talking about things that are coming down the road. Okay, so it's coming down the road. So what? So what does that mean in your mind? What does that mean to the utility critical infrastructure companies as that technology kind of comes to the marketplace?
Well, I think the broadband side of it, as the broadband technology comes to the utility side, especially on the private LTE efforts that are going on right now across the United States and worldwide, to be honest. I think what it gives them a backbone to be able to run all of their mission critical infrastructure across, whether it be voice or whether it be smart grid or whether it be metering or any of the places where today they may have disparaging networks, right? We've talked to utilities that have 20 plus networks that they maintain. Of course, all of them come up to end of life at a different time, so they're continuously trying to figure out what's next.
Right.
And they really never have had a backbone to be able to say, you know what's next is whatever we can run over this new broadband network that we're putting together. So I think that's the exciting part about it, is it provides a backbone to run networks across. And now we need to peak, as James mentioned, the ecosystem of MCX and the products and those types of things that we can put together so that they can enable that backbone to do the things that they need to do in the future.
Yeah, that was, again, being the old guy, back in my day, these individual networks, purpose-driven networks, we did that. That's what the industry did. Unfortunately, you had a metering network, or you had a push-to-talk network, or you had a SCADA network, and you built them all just laid on top of each other. And I think that's seen as a keen advantage for utilities today as I look at that. And I also think of the broadband network almost as the equivalent to the wireline fiber backbones, right? You get that fiber backbone in place to your major locations, and you can leverage it for whatever it is you need to leverage it. And then, from a wireless broadband network, I think that kind of just adds to that when you can put those connections on the end and provide, but all of that is done with the utility standards, right? It's got to work. James mentioned it earlier. I think it was James that said, "Hey, it's got to work when it's got to work," right? That this when in the worst of the conditions, I think is the way you phrased it, James. Things have got to work. So that's what it's all about. If you're in this space, is it's got to work, and we can, excuse me, we can look across the landscape and over the past several years, see where utilities have had issues with those kinds of capabilities following these disasters. And then the companies that, are more prepared from an infrastructure perspective. It just, if you can't talk, you can't get the lights back on. If you can't talk, you can't get the water flowing, all those kinds of things. So I look forward to it. Again, when I look back, again, being the old guy, I just marvel at what technology's done. But I can just think about what happens 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and what'll be possible. So it's companies like L3Harris that continues to bring those capabilities and products to the market. And I look forward to, I don't think I'm going to be working in this space 20 years from now. I guess I never say never. But I look forward to sitting back and watching and reading about what's going on, and just take a little bit of pride in the fact that we had a part of that. Well, guys, our time's kind of winding down here, and I do appreciate you taking some time to come talk to me today. Thank you, for all you do for the company, your involvement with UTC, but specifically for sharing your thoughts today, guys. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Rusty. We appreciate you joining us and the glad part of UTC, and we're looking forward to seeing everyone at Region 3 this March down in Jacksonville.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely, Rusty. Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's great talking to you today.
Same here. Same here. It's always fun, especially when we can talk to people that we know and have been around the industry for a good while. Well, all right, we'll wind it down, and that will do it for this episode of the C-Suite Conversations. I hope you'll subscribe to this podcast and be looking for future episodes as we go into the new year. I hope everyone has a great day.